Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. James White.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to talk about this bill and the intentions behind it to drive innovation and growth and productivity by reforming digital market regulation, the competition regime and consumer protection. And let me begin with the digital market elements. Technology permeates every aspect of our lives, and the businesses developing and applying new technologies, whether they're social media platforms, online marketplaces or innovation-driven firms, are creating huge benefits for consumers and making a major economic contribution. And as the Chancellor frequently reminds us, the UK is the only country outside the US and China to have a tech sector with companies valued at over £1 trillion. Companies have developed their businesses and attracted customers. So we must always be mindful that regulation and intervention in markets comes at a cost, and my starting point is to trust the invisible hand of the market as much as possible to drive competition. But of course markets do require rules, and where those rules exist they need to be enforced. But we must be careful in how we approach regulation and not penalise firms for being successful. As has been said, digital markets have features that tend towards a few large players, including the importance of data and network effects. It is certainly not the case, however, that having a small number of players with large market power is of itself a bad thing. It can represent reward for innovation and investment. But as has been mentioned, the CMA, in its review of online advertising, concluded that Facebook and Google's market position meant that consumers and businesses faced increased costs, there was less innovation, and consumers had unfavourable terms imposed on them, and due to the reduced competition there. So the bill will give the CMA the tools to designate firms with that strategic market status and apply conduct requirements for fair dealing, open choices and trust, which all sounds very reasonable. For example, ensuring there's a clear appeal process if a user's marketplace access is terminated, or giving consumers choices and the ability to easily switch between services. However, it could easily become a burdensome requirement, so we must ensure this is a proportionate regime and that the cumulative impact of such requirements is regularly reviewed, and perhaps the bill could be further improved by including something on the face of the bill to require the CMA to do that. And as a member of the Regulatory Reform Group, ably chaired my honourable friend for Hitchin Harpenden, I share his concern at the accountability of regulators and systematic underperformance that we see. And given the significant power that they wield and the impact of their decisions on the lives of our constituents, they must be accountable for decisions. And my honourable friend set out very clearly and powerfully the case for our first report's recommendations to promote greater accountability, as well as introducing standardised metrics so we can judge their performance. And I hope those recommendations will be taken forward. Now, I want to briefly focus on the consumer regulation part of the bill. Where companies breach consumer protection rules, there should be swift and proportionate action, and currently that doesn't happen, as the CMA lacks the powers to rapidly act. It has to go to court, wherein it considers there's been a breach of consumer law. And Which has pointed out that a lack of powers mean that it took nearly 6 years to get an online secondary ticketing market to change its practices, although we've heard from the Honourable Member for Washington and Sunderland West that there are still problems in that sector, and that's why these new powers are to be welcomed, so there will be direct enforcement regime so the CMA can invest suspected breaches and issue enforcement notices and fines, and that just brings us into line with other major jurisdictions. Others have referred to subscription services, where I think about £30 billion is spent annually on them, and consumer groups have identified this as another area of potential abuse. And we'll all have had different experiences where it's been simple to unsubscribe from a service, and in other cases it's been far more difficult and perhaps deliberately so to make customers stick. Sky have raised concerns about just the level of prescriptiveness that's on the face of the bill regarding this, and pointed out that the requirements in some cases are more onerous than those actually applying in regulated sectors. So I hope the Minister will consider carefully those concerns while ensuring it's simple for customers to unsubscribe from services they no longer wish to pay for. And the final element I want to focus on is around fake reviews and the detriment for consumers and businesses. According to research by Which, fake reviews make consumers more than twice as likely to choose poor quality products. And people can be put off from making choices, whether it's about restaurants or somewhere to stay. And that's a particular issue for my North West Norfolk constituents, which has a vibrant tourism and hospitality sector, and UK hospitality welcomed the bill to help deliver fairness for hospitality venues and customers in this area. So I'd be grateful if the Minister could confirm when the consultation that he's referred to, that will get into the detail of how we'll tackle the fake reviews, will actually be published, so that we can then act rapidly to close down these unfair practices. So in conclusion, I support the intention of the bill to give the CMA powers to act rapidly against breaches of consumer law, to strengthen competition and to crack down on abuses.
MacDonald.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. I'll be relatively brief.